Salam everyone, I'm Zurairi A.R, an assistant foreign editor with the Straits Times. Welcome to another Asian Insider episode where we go across the causeway to explore and discuss Malaysia's current affairs or trends on the fourth Friday of alternate months. We are recording this episode on December 3rd. Joining us from Kuala Lumpur is our Malaysia Bureau Chief Shannon Teoh and our special guest Nik Nazmi Nik Ahmad, a member of parliament from Parti Keadilan Rakyat PKR and former Minister of Natural Resources and Environmental Sustainability. Apa khabar, Nik and Shannon? How are you guys doing?
Good, thank you.
I'm okay. Very glad it's not flooding despite the warnings that Map Malaysia was giving. So having pretty good weather, cool, but not crazy rain so far.
Yeah, in Singapore, it's quite cool this week, especially yesterday. It's like 20 plus only. So, Nik, it seems that when one steps down as minister, you either start a podcast or you sell nasi lemak. You chose the former, Nik. So, how's your show, Lebih Masa, doing so far? Just tell us a bit.
My sambal cooking skills, there's a lot to be desired there. But anyway, so I started a media platform, Lebih Masa. We have done over all in 50 plus episodes. I started actually while I was still a minister, but obviously now I do it twice a week. The podcast, yeah.
Very productive.
Yeah.
What else have you been doing besides podcast? Surely there's other things.
Well, there's a football podcast as well that I'm doing. So still podcast. Lepas minit 90. So that's the other thing. I have a community football club which plays in the third tier of the men's football league and the main women's league in Malaysia, and we have development programs. And I've been focusing in my constituency. Once in a while I talk about sustainability and leadership and stuff related to that.
Okay, nice to hear. So in this episode, we'll be wrapping up 2025 in Malaysia. It has been quite a defining year for the country. And today, we will be diving into three issues that have dominated headlines and shaped national conversations. We'll talk about the political turmoil inside PKR and how Prime Minister Datuk Seri Anwar Ibrahim's cabinet was left with 4 empty ministerial posts, the epidemic of school violence that claimed lives from Zara Qairina to the fatal stabbing, and the Harimau Malaya football scandal that saw FIFA slap Malaysia with, massive fines and not only that, but international embarrassment. Okay, so let's start with what's happening inside your own party, PKR. Nik, you resigned your post in May this year after losing the party's vice presidency. You cited the importance of party mandate and accountability. But as at the time of recording right now, Mr. Anwar still hasn't filled the 4 vacant cabinet posts. When you resigned, right, PM Anwar pleaded with you to stay. But up until now, your portfolio stays vacant. Does this prolonged vacancy vindicate your decision to step down? Or does it suggest that maybe Mr. Anwar never truly intended to accept the so-called quote-unquote democratic principles that you and also fellow Minister Rafizi Ramli invoked when both of you resigned?
It's not what we did was rare, but it was not unprecedented. I like to cite the person closest to the causeway, Shari Samad, who actually resigned as a federal minister in 2009 when he lost the UMNO Supreme Council elections. The point being that, obviously being a minister, you are appointed at the prerogative of the Prime Minister. But party position is one of the considerations. I was vice president when PKR won in 2022. And I know that was a consideration in being appointed as a minister. So I felt that it was only right that when I lost that I resigned. I think it was a surprise to a lot of people because, you resigning from being a minister, the perks, the all the things that you have, the privilege that you have when you are in office, and obviously the satisfaction of being able to influence policies directly. Obviously, that's part and parcel of being in politics for me. But I don't think it's the same without that democratic mandate. And people need to believe that these things matter, principles matter. And we did say at the beginning of the party elections that if we lose, we will resign. And I think it's important that we deliver on that.
Okay, so it's part of like fulfilling the promise. Shannon, as you wrote in your opinion piece recently on December 1st, Mr. Anwar's unity government is now operating with that empty positions, right? And they are crucial portfolios: economy, natural resources, entrepreneurial development, investment and trade. So does this reflect Mr. Anwar's inability to manage coalition tensions, or is it like there's a shortage of qualified talent? Or do you think like it's because of political horse trading, like he was waiting for the results of the Sabah election? What do you think?
Uh, it's one of these answers, all of the above lah. I mean yes, that it does reflect some inability to manage a very sprawling coalition, multi-coalition government, and a shortage of talent. But I don't want to be too critical of Anwar here. In the good old days, you want to compare to previous prime ministers. In the good old days of one party rule in Malaysia, it's much easier. You have a prime minister, a very set coalition. You know everyone in your coalition. Dah lama kenal, and the people will say that if for Made, he has known Sami Velu, Lin Leong Sek for so long. He knows who he's appointing. He knows who they want to appoint in their party. He knows all the party dynamics of all the parties inside Barisan Nasional at that time, right? So it's very easy for him to manage. For Anwar, he may be very well versed in what's happening in PH, but maybe if with Barisan Nasional, for GPS, all these other coalitions he has to bring into government, he has to find out a bit more. If I appoint this guy, who would it upset? How do I balance the tensions, not just within my own coalition, but everyone's coalition, right? But important.
Okay.
At the same time, it's not the Rakyat's problem, right? If he has a
Yeah.
multi-coalition government,
Yep.
right? You're the prime minister, you saw it out, right? I think at the same time, you have to remember we criticize Muhyiddin and Ismail Sabri, for example, for making dozens of political appointments all over the place. GLC chairman, statutory board, everywhere, right? He appointed so many people, huge cabinet, right? I can't even remember how many deputy ministers he had. And so I think we should judge Anwar by the same yardstick. On the one hand, you have these guys, he appointed so many people, and we criticize them. On the other hand, Anwar can't seem to appoint enough people into important positions, right? Like we say. And yes, Sabah polls are a good reason to wait, but that's just for cabinet. I think we've covered at Straits Times also that there have been all these other vacancies in the judiciary, Suhakam, civil aviation chairman, KTM had no chairman for 2 years, so on and so forth lah. It's really all over the place, right? And I think if you were a PH supporter, the expectation was that if when Anwar becomes PM, and it's a unity government kind of thing, yeah, you have to compromise a bit and that, but in the main, it's a PH-led government, and you have a 2/3 majority, right? So you should be the one telling other partners, you have to help me help you. I want to make these decisions. You have to sell it to your constituents, right? It's still a
Yeah.
PH-led government. But if you are being too much of a problem, then maybe we shouldn't have you in the government. Like if say UMNO is angry at some decisions, okay, then maybe you leave. But I still have a simple majority, right? So if not, then we have to ask the question: what's the difference between having 150 MPs in your government and having 112 like Muhyiddin? Well, in Muhyiddin's case, some people say he only had 108 or 100. Right? But no, what's the difference if you are being pulled apart by your coalition partners?
Yeah, Nick, you have anything to add from an insider's view? Is there really like a dearth of capable candidates within Pakatan Harapan or even Barisan Nasional for that matter?
I was just happy that you asked that question to Shannon. But anyway, um, well, I one of the things, if you look at PKR, okay, fine. I know like Nurul Izzah is, there's a lot of complexities there. The Prime Minister's daughter, she's not a member of parliament and all that. Fine. But if you look at the Vice President, for example, Amiruddin and Aminuddin, the two chief ministers, they're already there. They are incumbents. They won. They defended the place. They are both chief ministers of different state governments. Lee Kang, similarly, he defended his position. So Ramanan won, and he is still a deputy minister. So I would think that, if I were Ramanan, I would think that I would have a good chance. And the other thing you have to remember is that this is the few, if not the only cabinet where there is no Tamil in office, no full minister who's Tamil, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's significant.
Mm-hmm.
So traditionally in a PN government, you will have one MIC full minister. Traditionally, you had the AP Tamils as full ministers. So I think, and PKR traditionally is also quite has a strong Indian base. So I do believe that Ramanan would expect, and he is already deputy minister. He has won vice president. I've made it easy. I think, not necessarily to be in that portfolio, but certainly leaving that one vacant spot. And I do think that there are other capable people. There is one more, I guess, if you do not want to disturb the calculus, one more from Sabah. You need to have what you call that one UMNO, since Zafrul was representing UMNO, and one more from PKR, right? So I think that can be a good starting point. And actually, this is the last major reshuffle that he should have.
Oh,
He
Yeah,
did that one year in office, which I felt was obviously for me
a bit early. Yeah.
my
mm,
ministry, so I'm not a big fan
mm-hmm.
of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, if he could do it in 1 year, so this would be a major one, the last major one that he should do. If you look at elections being to the end of 2027.
Yep, yep.
But let me put you on the spot. So why do you think Ramanan is not a full minister? I mean, you pointed out all the reasons why he should be.
Well, I don't know. You have to ask the prime minister. But maybe, I mean, whatever it is, they want to do it in one go. I mean, perhaps he doesn't want to do it in drips
Mm.
and drabs. Um,
Okay.
I don't know. But if I were Ramanan, I would expect to be a minister.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, Shan, since we've already touched on the topic of Nurul Izzah, let's talk a bit about the future of PKR's leadership. With the old reformist guard either defeated, resigned, or, well, you can say exiled from leadership, who do you think has the political credentials, but perhaps most importantly, grassroots support to bring the party and also the coalition PH forward? What do you think?
I mean, you look at the current hierarchy and you'd say Nurul, you'd say Nurul is the heir apparent to her father, right? Her, she's called Putri Reformasi for a reason, lah. Although quite nastily, I mean, some people, what I've heard is within the party, some people have dropped the Reformasi. They just call her Putri, right? And make of that
Oh,
what you will, lah.
ouch.
I'm not gonna
Okay.
ask YB to confirm if this is true or not. I don't get in trouble. But I don't know if the problem is she's still in her father's shadow, or in fact, just like Anwar is finding now, not so easy to deliver on reformasi's kind of stuff when you're in power, right? But I think that will play out its natural course. The day will come when Anwar will have to retire from politics, and we'll see whether Nurul can stand on without that shadow of a father over her anymore. Just like Guaning, just like many other children of former stalwarts, can you stand on your own 2 feet lah, in that sense? And unfortunately, it's something you can only find out after, right? So, but if you look beyond the so-called keluarga Anwar in that sense, I would say, I personally, I'm from Selangor also, and I would say Amir.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's been Selangor MB for 2 terms, and there have been one or two issues here, and especially surrounding his officers and things like that. But nothing which is like a big knockout blow, lah, nothing which, if you want to talk about the kind of issues that maybe Zahid has faced and so on and so forth, right? So I think he seems to quietly go about his work without any huge drama. I think he's governed pretty well, very competent CM. But then that's the problem, like you're just competent. Although that's hard to find in Malaysia apparently. But I think when people look for prime minister, they want someone with a vision, right? They want someone who can really speak to national issues and things like that. Which Anwar, to be fair, is a kind of leader which is like that. So I mean, it looks that for all intents and purposes, by next term, Amir will move to federal, and that could be make or break for him, lah, right? I mean, if he ends up in a portfolio where he doesn't really have the ideas or the people around him to make it exciting, then you could just drift along, right? Just be permanent vice president in PKR sort of thing, and we've always just hanging around in cabinet. But if he gets something really nice and juicy, and he really gets really a lot of momentum going behind his ministry, I think he will start getting into that conversation, right? I mean, the same way, even though Kyrie, we are waiting to see what happens to Kyrie right now. But he was health minister during COVID, right? That became very juicy for him, right? And he really could. It was very different from when he was youth and sports minister,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah. It's a
He
big
didn't do
portfolio.
badly then, but health minister during COVID was a big deal,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
So if he gets something like that, then that's great, lah. But I just want to make one point here that is we need to be careful not to write off, as you said, those who have been defeated, resigned, exiled, and all that, because party elections are every 3 years, and Rafizi, who one of those who lost in May, also lost before and made a comeback, right, to the deputy presidency. And so, if indeed the party seems to lose its way or whatever, and the Sabah polls are, a kind of indicator of that, then who's to say, present company included, RR and NN kind of thing aren't going to ride back as white knights to save the party again, lah, right? It's happened before, it can happen again.
Yeah, yeah. Nick, besides yourself, obviously, and Rafizi, is there any dark night that we may have to keep an eye on, or making any comebacks in the next speaker election?
Well, I don't think there's that. There's the main characters, I guess, that people would reflect on.
Azmin, no,
And
not coming back.
not that I know of. I don't know what's happening there, but you never know, right? You never know. But yeah, I mean, I think people will obviously. I think we were the more senior ones that were defeated and resigned. So I think a lot of people would put a lot of focus on what we do next.
Okay, yeah. Let's shift to our next topics. A national crisis that's been getting worse by the day. Malaysia recorded 7,681 bullying cases in schools in 2024. That's a 17% jump from the same period before. This year alone, we've seen everything from Zara Qairina's death to the fatal stabbing to cases of gang rapes in what are supposed to be safe learning environments. So the death of Zara Qairina especially has left lasting impact on Malaysians, but especially for Sabahans where the cases happened. So Nick, as someone who has held a ministerial post during this scandal, like, do you believe Malaysia's institutions, from the school administrators to the police, I mean, to your own former cabinet colleagues, are we all structurally incapable of protecting children, or was this simply gross negligence?
There's a few parties there, right? One is the educational side, but there's also the police. I will talk first about the police, and I think those are real serious questions that people need to ask. Um, and I think that knee-jerk reaction to always defend. I think that is something. I mean, of course, I mean, as a minister, you're surrounded by civil servants, by officials who will tell you their version of things, right? And maybe often they are correct. I'm not denying that, but there will be times when they are put on the defensive and they have to protect their own. And you just have to you have to ask and try to look out from your bubble to see what's really happening outside. That's one. And things just like, we will look into this. That's the simplest answer that you can give, rather than outright denial, right? Um, that's one. But two, I think so. The police is obviously a very, very strong institution. Even in the UK, they say when you become a home minister, you will turn native. You're reforming, you're liberal, and all that. But the moment you become a
Okay,
home
with the moment,
minister, yeah,
yeah,
your
yeah.
your your worldview changes, right?
Okay,
Um,
okay.
Similarly, I think for education, again, I mean, education in Malaysia historically has been a very powerful ministry. This is the ministry for future PMs, um, virtually almost everyone except for Ismail Sabri that I remember, Pak Lah perhaps. The rest were all education ministers at one point of time. So, but I do think that the mistakes that both Mahathir and Anwar has made is to appoint first-term MPs to and novice politician into this task, right? You have Mazli, and even Mazli, I would say, is a bit more aware of educational stuff. Fadlina is very new for her.
Yeah, yeah.
I feel that she listens to the civil servants and the teachers too much.
Okay. Why do you say so?
She do not look at it critically. I mean, obviously, when you're a minister, you are fed with scripts, with lines from your civil servants, but it doesn't mean that you have to follow. I mean, you are not the permanent staff. You're not the KSU. You are the minister. You decide on policy. So I feel that she doesn't challenge her officers enough. Obviously, I mean, it's easier said. I mean, being someone who wasn't there, it's easier said than done. But or you can find your allies in order to change the system from within the system, right? But even then, I didn't think seeing her in cabinet and all that, I don't think that she challenged or confronted the ministry enough. So,
Okay.
yeah, so I think the tragedy of it all is obviously it's a tough situation with social media, with handphones. Things are very different than when we went into school. But that's the reality that you have to deal with, right? And I think that if you are not assertive, it will not only reflect badly on you, it will also reflect badly on the Prime Minister and the government. Because at the end of the day, people say, okay, Fadlina is bad, but who appointed her there? Well, the question will say, well, it was the Prime Minister who put her there, right? So that is my concern. And this is a portfolio that's perhaps the most important of all. I would love to have that portfolio. I mean, it's a tough job, yes, but everyone will have an opinion about education, right? Environment is, people don't really care that much generally, but education, everyone went to school at the very least.
Yeah.
So I think that is where you need a key person, and I think this is where, I mean, ultimately that's a fundamental failure that resulted in this crisis that we have.
Yeah, Shannon, not only there was a death, but also there was a case of the fatal stabbing and then the gang rape, right?
Yeah.
So the government's response has been deploying counsellors, talking about tighter security, CCTV. You can argue that those are essentially reactive, just band-aids.
Shouting slogans.
Why do you think so shouting slogans? Okay, so Shannon, why do you think that Malaysia is so hesitant about like a more systemic overhaul?
Yeah, and then let's not forget to talk about bringing back caning.
Like what?
And a social media ban for those under 16. I mean, we can argue over how effective all this kind of initiatives might be, but it's all very blunt force, right? And it's very trying to find a bogeyman. Oh, it's social media. Oh, it's because the kids aren't, we are not, spare the rod, spoil the child sort of thing, right? All these ideas, quick fix, right? We do this and then, the problem will go away. But when you think about it, okay, let's talk about social media. It's not just social media exists, right? Who is letting them be on social media, right? It's the parents. In the stabbing, the guy managed to buy that knife or whatever, right?
How right?
How did these things happen, right? So I think this work that we don't talk about, it's not really in the public sphere a lot. I know child protection, and we tend to think of it as like, orphans, or refugee children, or what do we do for this the people who live on the edges and the fringes of society sort of thing, right? But no, child protection is for everyone, right? For all the millions of kids that you have in Malaysia, and the ones that can go to school, the ones even in private schools, rich kids, right? And they face this sort of whether it's social pressures or peer pressure and stuff like this. I mean, I'm aware that there are people who work in child protection. They've been going around engaging families and finding out that parents just don't have a support system, right? Nowadays, most families are dual income. And so who takes care of the kids when the parents are not home, right? And actually, it's not so different from when we were, I say we, but I think Zoo, you're a bit younger. But YB and myself, we are about early 40s.
Not that much younger.
Right? And we were brought up by TV. I mean, pretty much, right? The good thing is that at that time, TV was just Transformers, whatever cartoons and stuff like MacGyver. right? I assume you were watching the same stuff as me. And my father
Yeah, I
figure is
had TV
still
pendidikan.
my father figure is still Optimus Prime, right? That's
Oh, yeah,
that's the
okay, yeah.
extent of it, right? But kids now, they don't get TV, they get smartphone lah, or
Mm,
iPad or whatever, and there is
yeah,
no
yeah, yeah.
control. Like for TV that time, very simple. Your parents open the first page of a newspaper. There's the TV
Can
listing.
see
I know what
what's
my kids are
coming.
watching. If the TV is on at this time, I know he's watching between TV one, TV two, TV three. There's only so much you can watch, right?
Yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
it's the same, right? It's the situation is the same. Parents are going to work. Who's bringing up the children? Is either is some kind of screen line. The screens then were quote unquote safer lah. And I think the ideal situation is, of course, if we can invest in counselors and extra security guards, whatever. If there's budget, by all means, let's do it. But I remember we used to have this idea of having daycare centers, right? Whether at workplaces or suburbs. I remember this being discussed in government and how to implement it, and then it just like died a natural death or whatever it is. And because when you talk about counseling and security guards, you're nearly waiting for the kids to be maladjusted. And then let's say, this kid has a certain issue problem. Let's go and talk to
Yeah,
him. Oh, there's a
yeah,
stabbing going on now. Now let's someone's already been stabbed. Then the security guards come in. I mean, where's the
yeah.
kind of preventive sort of thing? And I wonder if we can even activate houses of worship, right? Mosques, churches, temples. By right, they should be pillars of community. And it doesn't really even have to be like religious classes, right? And kids all around the country just go over, have lunch, shower, do homework, whatever, then play sports or learn carpentry or programming or robotics, whatever it is, like, right?
Carpentry.
I mean, learn a skill instead of being on the
Yeah,
phone, right? Or, like I said,
yeah,
like
yeah,
robotics
yeah.
or programming, anything, like,
Okay
right?
lah, cooking classes.
Cooking classes, whatever is this,
Yeah.
fill their time with something which is interesting, right?
Mm,
But
yeah,
also
yeah.
useful instead of just, here's the phone, please don't disturb me because I'm working.
In
Mm.
fact,
The
in
work
fact,
is
I think
important.
one of the things that we forget, but I remember because I was a debater in high school, and this was the time of Malaysia being a confident,
Yeah.
optimistic country. We wanted to have single session schools, no
Mm.
longer two session, morning and afternoon, because we can afford to build more schools and to hire more teachers. Because that's where most you go to other schools, other in Singapore and many
Other
other
countries, yeah.
developed countries. That's how it is because they have enough
Yeah,
space,
yeah.
enough teachers, right? And that will sort out a lot of issues like all this transit stuff and all that. And I think we need, obviously now we have bigger problems and we have our economy is not growing the same. But I think those are things that eventually we need to relook if we are to talk about Malaysia being a developed country.
Okay, spoken like true parents all.
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Finally, let's talk about a scandal that's made Malaysia internationally notorious this year. Perhaps the biggest scandal since 1MDB, you
Yeah,
would
I
say?
think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so FIFA has hit Football Association of Malaysia, or FAM, with 1.9 million ringgit in fines, having laid out detailed evidence that documents used for the 7 heritage players' eligibility, well, appearing to be forged or falsified. Nick, I know you're a huge fan of football. You contested for, like earlier you said, you not only contested for the Kuala Lumpur FA presidency, but you also founded KL Rangers FC. I guess both of you are massive Liverpool fans as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, and it's not time for a slot out yet, right?
No, not yet lah. He's won a title, which is more than you can
Okay.
say for many managers. So yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Shannon, we have seen damning evidence from FIFA. FAM Secretary General has been suspended. An inquiry has been opened. But really, doesn't this scandal raise serious questions about systemic failures and maybe I don't know, corruption at the highest levels of Malaysian football administration? And if so, I think many people are asking why hasn't anyone been criminally prosecuted?
I mean, up to now, we don't know exactly who is, what they will say, the mastermind behind the forgery lah. Everyone has a guess. I think in this room we all have a very clear guess, but we probably shouldn't say it. But I think look. I mean, let's take a step back from trying to point fingers and just think about it systemically, right? When even the home minister is saying that, oh, everything legal. I used my discretion. That was legal. Everything is legal. So then, if the boss of the enforcement agency is saying, move along, nothing to see here, then there's nothing to
Yeah.
see here. Lah. And we have the youth and sports minister also saying that, oh, I can't interfere, right? Although in my opinion, that's wrong. right? I think it is time for her to interfere. Then in this case, nothing will happen, lah, right? Everyone's saying, oh, nothing to be done, nothing to see here, move along, right? And I think just you mentioned 1MDB, just like 1MDB and Najib before, if the political structure says nothing to investigate, everything is fine, then just like now we have all these NFAs and DNAs flying around, then nothing will be done. Lah. But I think this is really a wake up call for Malaysians, right? We think, we got back some pride in the fact that our judiciary is, restored some confidence over the past 5 years or so. But what happens before a case actually lands in court, right? You have, so it's like a who watches the watchman sort of thing. Lah. The police,
Yeah.
YB has talked about the police earlier, anti-graft agency, prosecutors, how independent are they? How much are they actually empowered to go and look into this kind of cases, right? And there's concern also, if you give them a lot of power with no oversight, then what kind of things happen, right? And it's a digression, a huge digression, but the raid on Albert Tay's house and stuff like that, I think people will look at that as an overreach, right? So we have all these problems with the other parts of law enforcement, as it were. And you can't just have great courts. You have to have the entire apparatus, which is also great. Like.
Yeah, FIFA has so far even rejected Farm's appeal, right? I mean, like, Nick, surely you have some ideas. How does Malaysian football recover its credibility? I mean, like, when it's now, I mean, like, this is like a slap to the face, right? I mean, like, even here in Singapore, it's becoming such a big topic. I mean, like, they're laughing at Malaysian football because of this. They just qualified for Asian Cup. Meanwhile, Malaysia is not there yet. I mean, what do you think, Nick?
There are a few levels to this, right? But I think first and foremost is beyond football. Citizenship is something that is very, very sensitive. And, Malaysia does not allow dual citizenship. And I know for a fact, and this is, I think, what pisses a lot of people off when the Home Minister replied, as he did, about this is ministerial powers. He exercised it correctly. The issue, it remains, is that there are many Malaysians of all races. We know the Sabah issue, that's a bit more complicated politically. But I know in my constituency, I see every year dozens of parents. It tends to be working class. They lack information, language barrier. They did not register stuff in time and all that. And they have to wait for years. I mean, to be fair, the Home Minister has assisted. And I think he has been actually a bit more liberal in many ways than other Home Ministers. But he doesn't talk about it, or he doesn't want to talk about it. But that's fine. But the issue here is that when you say that I'm using ministerial powers and it's perfectly legal, and we know that these cases are dubious, then people will start to ask a question: why are you going so far to defend this action? That's one, right? On the football front,
Okay.
you can debate about using naturalized players, but if they're properly naturalized, it's fine. I mean, I know there are players who have been in Malaysia for many years. We also know that I think Scottish guy, the kid is, he was playing for Penang. The kid grows up here. They can speak Malay, and that's fine, right? But when you have people who suddenly, you start to do a calculation, there must be a few ships from Penang or Sarawak or whatever that went to Latin America in a certain year, and suddenly you have seven or eight of them come home to roost.
Yep.
That raises. I mean, in the beginning we had some serious questions, right? So I think it's sad because you have a lot of grassroots. I mean, I'm involved grassroots football development, local Malaysians. I mean, we did well. We drew. I was there at the game when we drew with Korea. That when Faisal Halim scored that beautiful goal in the Asian Cup. We have a lot of potential, our football. But this will kill it off, right? I mean, I remember it took a long time for Malaysia to recover after the match fixing scandal in the mid-90s. Before that, stadiums were full and all that, and then that killed it off for another 10 years or so. So I hope that this does not do the same, but you can't blame. And, football in Malaysia gets a lot of money, directly and indirectly from the government.
Okay.
Right?
Okay. From
Yeah,
the
so I think,
government.
and yet the returns are very little compared to other sports. So people will start to ask,
Yeah.
why football?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm like, surely the money can be invested in other sports as well,
Yeah.
right? Yep. Just to add to that, Nick, and I mean earlier you said like home minister usually is a portfolio where once you get it, you become native, right? I mean, is this a similar situation to what you've mentioned earlier? Do you think?
Maybe there's something even higher than that. I don't know, right? But again, a simple answer. If I were, pay me to be a consultant, it's just say we will look into it.
Okay, this is an
We'll
app.
investigate that. Right? Why do you have? He was
Yeah.
so defensive, and I think that would
Mm-hmm.
really turn people off. And I mean, to be fair, Saifuddin, you put a higher expectation on him because he's a seasoned politician.
Yeah.
I wouldn't, Fadlina is a different kettle of fish. So when he answered like that, I felt that that was a big, big mistake. And that moment, it became more than football.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yeah, there you go.
it is now become a question of whether the state apparatus is involved in cheating,
Yeah.
right?
Yep.
And that's why we say that this is as big as 1 MDB and so on and so forth. It's not about the money, but the kind of crisis of
Yeah,
public
yeah.
confidence, right, that is happening now.
Yes. Well, there you go. If anyone is looking for a consultant to fix our football, yeah, you
Yeah,
have one.
I need the money. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, now it's time for our news nugget segment where we share some of our more offbeat stories. Nick, your former colleague Tengku Zafrul, I mean, like since now you're both jobless, he went for a morning run in Kota Kinabalu and basically rubbed it in everyone's faces that he could exercise before his 8:30 a.m. meeting because, like the sun actually rises at a more civilized hour there. Meanwhile, the rest of us in Kuala Lumpur and Singapore are stumbling to work in the dark like vampires because Dr. Made decided back in the early 80s that we should share time zone with East Malaysia, right? Despite being over 1,000 kilometers away. So, Shannon and Nick, let's say if one day Peninsula Malaysia rolls back our time zone, right, to to UTC plus 7, and we get that quote unquote extra 1 hour in the morning before because the sun rises earlier, I'm like, what would you use it for, Shannon?
But I do normally wake up at about 6, a few minutes past 6, and it's of course pitch black, right? And so I use the time to shovel some early work, things that pile up overnight. I get it out of the way, use that time, and that's why sometimes you see me messaging you, Zurairi, at crazy times like
Yeah,
6 a.m. You see a message from me. And then I settle my daughter, walk the dog, and all that. Then if I still have time before any early morning appointment, I might go and, like Zafro, go and get a workout in, lah, right? Get some exercise in. So in fact, if we did move the clock back by 1 hour, I would do that, right? I would be able to ensure that I have time to get my exercise in the morning instead of thinking, besok, tomorrow, can I do it in the morning or do I have to wait until evening and stuff like that? I will be able to, regardless of what are my parental or workplace schedules are like, be able to get it done. And it'd be nice to watch the sunrise as I have my morning coffee, rather than miss it while getting my daughter ready to school, because school is 7:30, right? So and the sun comes up about 7:10. At that time, I'm like
Yep.
getting a dress, putting the things in the bag and all that,
Okay.
right? So I just think it would be good for my mental health, actually, all things considered.
Yeah. Well, Nick, I mean, obviously you wake up early as well, but anything to add?
I like
What would you
to
do?
exercise in the morning.
Okay.
Normally, sometimes, although I mean, a lot of times is planning and intentions which do not happen as often as I would like. But I
New
prefer
Year
to
is
exercise in.
coming, new resolution.
Yeah. So, but I
Yeah.
do try, and I mean, Zafrul's a faster runner and he does full marathons and all that. But so I do like my exercise in the morning, preferably. So yeah, it can be pitch dark after morning prayers, 6-ish. I mean, this is a big campaign. I have people who campaign as well because they feel that our body clock is unnatural. We are not praying. I mean, I have even like people who campaign. They say that this is not natural praying time because of the hours. Yeah, but I just, because I grew up. I mean, I was born pretty much with this cycle, this Mahathir legacy. So I
Yeah,
can't
yeah,
really,
yeah. Yeah, it's not like
imagine
we
something
yeah.
different.
What would you do, Zu? I mean, what if you had an extra hour in the morning
No lah, same
in
lah. I mean, like
Singapore?
if you're a parent, right, you cannot escape. You have to wake up early, right,
Yeah.
to get your kids ready for school. And I don't know. Then again, when you're talking about working out early when it's dark, right? I guess in Singapore it's a bit. I guess you can say that it's a bit easier for me, like because I can send my kids down to the bus stop, and then even when it's dark, you feel sort of like safe. And in fact, I do prefer running in the dark because I mean I don't sweat as much because the sun is not bearing down on me. So then again, it's a question that goes beyond the time zone as well. Right? Like is the infrastructure there to support you, and because of that, more people are more comfortable running towards the evening because the light is still there and so on. Yeah.
No sprained
I
ankles,
don't
lah.
know.
I mean,
Yeah,
unlike if
yeah.
you
But
run in
then
the
again,
sidewalk
I
in
don't think.
Malaysia, you're liable to injure yourself if you can't see where you're going.
And then I don't know if it makes much difference. I mean, for example, you text me in the morning also. Like, I mean, I may wake up a bit earlier because I'm on a night shift,
Yeah,
for example. So so there are many things in
the equation.
in discussion there. Yeah. Okay. Thank you everyone. That's all we have for you from across the causeway this week. Thanks Shannon and our special guest Nik Nazmi for being with us today.
Thanks for having me here.
it's always going to be you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks again. Yeah. YB Nik. Yeah. This has been Asian Insider. I'm Zurairi A.R. We have links to the articles we mentioned throughout in our podcast show notes, and you can sign up for our Asian Insider newsletter too. If you like what you heard, please share this podcast with your friends and family. This episode was produced and edited by Faiza Sani. Terima kasih for listening, and see you in 2026, I guess.
With our new gym,
Happy New Year,
with our
everyone.
new gym resolutions and working out resolutions.
Yeah, and perhaps better luck for Liverpool by then.